They spiked the holy water with ink. They flooded the nuns' beds. And they even tried to escape through the chimney. Hello, I'm Sister Iva's story.
And hello, I'm Sister Babeushka.
And I'm Sister Alaska Lott.
And this is utter nonsense.
This is the show where we pour a nice hot cup of tea.
And utter whatever nonsense pops into our heads.
And we release a brand new video once a month, every month on the first of the month, along with shorter videos every week in between.
Well, Iva, it's nice to see you've joined us for the day.
Sister Iva is joining us today because we're going to tell a story.
What an exciting time it is to have our resident storyteller join us.
We so rarely let her out of the scriptorium.
I'm sure she's enjoying the fresh air and a change of scenery today.
Indeed. And thank you, Iva, for bringing us today's story. But for now, back you go. Back down. On with the story.
A story time, you say, Alaska? Oh, I can't wait to go through a tale of intrigue, mystery, seduction, and other hijinks.
And that's because today we're delving into the captivating tale that is the life of Hortense Mancini.
This 17th century woman lived a whirlwind life of glamour, glitter, and scandal.
And she was a queer icon.
And a nun.
Oh my. From bedding kings to dueling her lovers, the life of Hortense Mancini was, to be blunt, insane.
Well then, let's dive straight into the weird and wonderfully true story of Hortense.
Born into nobility in 1646 Rome, her mother was a great beauty, and her father an aristocrat who practiced black magic, specialising in astrology and necromancy.
Now, hold on a goddamn second, because as far as I know, yes, I'll accept necromancy can be part of the dark arts, because, the dead. But I draw the line at including astrology in the black magics.
It is the darkest of magics.
I suppose it does happen at night, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Meanwhile, her uncle was a cardinal. Cardinal Mazarin, who essentially became the co-ruler of France, alongside the Queen, during the regency of Anne.
After her father's untimely death, despite his unusual skill set, her newly widowed mother decided to move the family to Paris, where they could benefit from the influence of her brother, the Cardinal.
I was totally unprepared for you to just jab the knife into the father there.
It's necromancy and couldn't fucking, raise himself from the dead. Clearly not that skilled.
Once they arrived in France, the Mancini sisters took the streets of Paris by storm. They were basically the 17th century Kardashians. They were olive-skinned, beautiful, and very scandalous.
They even had their own name, the Mazarinets. That's some top 17th century branding right there. Kris Jenner would be proud.
Did not think we'd be talking Kardashians this episode. Charles II, eventually to become King of England, proposed marriage to Hortense when she was, 13 years old. It was a different time, to be fair. People died a lot younger, so you lived a lot yeah, well, okay. But Charles II was still in exile at the time. And so, the Cardinal, he said, hell to the no.
Instead, a year later, she was married off to the richest man in Europe, Armand Charles de la Porte, Duke de la Meilleraye.
Paying by the letter.
You are when it comes to your tombstone.
Armand. was granted the title of Duc de Mazarin, making Hortense the Duchess de Mazarin. And after her uncle's death, under no suspicious circumstances, gained access to his wife's massive inheritance.
It's like watching Jeff Bezos get even richer. Which all sounds great for Hortense, of course, until you realise that the richest man in Europe was the literal worst.
Well, you're right about that, Alaska. He was a religious nut who took zealous dickery to a whole new level. And after this promising start to their marriage, his behaviour started becoming rather odd.
For example, he forbade the milkmaids from actually milking. You see, he feared that the very sight of them doing their job and milking the cows could pose the threat of starting some kind of dairy-based sexual riot.
He knew about those damn fetishists long before they came on the scene.
He was just tired of people going up to his milkmaids and saying, "Got milk?"
That was utterly terrible.
Moving on.
He also worried so much about the lustful and sinful power of smiling that he ordered all his female servants' front teeth knocked out. I'm laughing at that. To prevent them from attracting the attention of any passing man, as any reasonable person would do.
I think it's clear that this guy was just a little bit unhinged. He also went to great lengths to censor his own art collection, painting over all the dirty bits and causing irreparable damage in the process, simply because he was too genteel for genitals.
Sounds like a fun fucking house to live in, doesn't it? You can't get fresh milk, you're missing your teeth if you work there, and oh, the art's been ruined.
We're going to paint over the privates, and we're going to put some spectacles on him because he's got no testicles, so we've got spectacles, and a little curly moustache.
And perhaps, unsurprisingly, he also forbade his wife from keeping company with other men, and would conduct midnight searches for hidden lovers. Suffice to say, he was more than a little unstable.
Funnily enough, I think he was worrying about the wrong thing. You see, 15-year-old Hortense quickly realised that he was a monumental blend, and so soon into her marriage, she did start seeing someone else.
But not the male rival that Armand feared, but another young woman. Sidonie de Courcelles. Armand was shocked when he found out. Oh, the immorality.
And so he did the most obvious thing. He packed the two girls off to a convent. That'll teach them.
Now, I'm sure we've played this scenario out before, Alaska, with certain nun stories in the past.
They never learn, do they?
That's right. He sent them far, far away. Together. This man is a genius.
Obviously, the girls continued their affair and they weren't overly fussed about their punishment. They had a grand time playing pranks on the nuns. They spiked the holy water with ink. They flooded the nuns' beds. And they even tried to escape through the chimney.
It was basically St. Trinians, but with more sex and some very pissed off nuns. Actually, how has that not been made into a film yet?
I would legit watch that. Soon, the nuns had had enough and they sent the pair packing back to St. Armand.
The affair eventually did fizzle out, but Hortense still thought that Armand was a complete and utter plonker. He's a plonky plonker.
Thankfully, after multiple attempts, including a bona fide attempt to divorce him, she eventually escaped the marriage, and it was spectacular.
She rode out of the gates on horseback, dressed as a man, and quickly fled France for the safety of her sister Marie's home in Rome. A move so unheard of that her antics even spawned magazines devoted to the topic.
Genuinely, because she actually left her children behind as well. She just legged out of there. She was like, fuck this life. This ain't it. Ultimately, she did return to France, where her former lovers, Louis XIV and the Duke of Savoy, announced that she was now under their protection. And with a nice pension from the king, she moved into the household of the presumably delighted Duke.
Sadly, however, the Duke died soon after. No mysterious circumstances, don't worry, people. And his wife promptly kicked her to the curb.
How unfortunate. But remember our pal Armand? Well, he certainly remembers Hortense. In fact, he has been obsessively pursuing her this entire time. And at this particular point in our story, he successfully screwed her over once again by having her assets frozen, which included her stipend from the king.
Oh, now we've got financial abuse coming into it. How great.
Isn't he a swell guy?
He had hoped that the lack of funds would force her to return to him and his also appealing scenario at home. But instead, she made a bid to escape him once more. Hortense eventually arrived at English court in 1675, dressed as a pistol-wielding man, naturally. That's how you're supposed to show up in England. And swiftly entered into a plot to try and replace the mistress of Charles II.
She certainly does get about, doesn't she? Charles II, does that name ring any bells? That's right. The guy she's supposed to seduce is the same King of England who wanted to marry her earlier in the story.
Holy shit!
Plot twist.
Clearly, he was still bewitched by her, because as soon as she became a royal mistress to her previous beau, he began providing her with a rather generous pension and a house, if you know what I mean.
I believe it was referred to as her petit palace. So, just a humble little abode.
Small thing, really, a pittance.
Now, they were both a very good match because they loved lavish parties, riding, and fencing. The king didn't even mind her refusal to address him as Majesty. He also didn't mind her numerous affairs with both men and women. It was all going rather swimmingly. That is, until Hortense pushed things just a bit too far by sleeping with his 15-year-old daughter.
Well, I suppose there's being understanding and then having somebody taking the piss. That's a choice. I'll allow the affairs, darling, but please, not my daughter. The pair had attempted to keep the affair relatively quiet, but things might have hit the front page when Hortense and Anne were actually spotted publicly dueling in the middle of St. James Park in their nightgowns and with a group of men looking on.
She certainly knew how to cause a stir. The daughter was ultimately banished to the countryside where she refused to leave her bed. Instead, she would just lay there pining for Hortense and crying over a miniature portrait of her and kissing it. It's actually kind of sad.
My God, girl, snap out of it. Come on, there's other women out there.
Being banished to the countryside doesn't sound that bad.
Hortense, however, moved straight on to her next affair and took the Prince of Monaco as her lover. Another royal was just too much for poor Charles II, and he refused to pay her pension for a few days, but quickly relented.
What a surprise.
This was the end of Hortense's position as the king's favourite, however.
But never fear, because here comes the comeback king. Yes, it's Armand. And yes, I had hoped to never hear of him again as well. This time, he took her to court in 1689 to demand that his wife return to Italy with him. The audacity!
Surely the man must know when he's not wanted anymore.
It's quite pitiful, isn't it? Like, move on. You're the richest man in Europe. I'm sure you can find someone else. Why are you so obsessed? She must have been quite something.
Thankfully, she managed to evade him once more as the master of disguise that she is, and retired to the English countryside, where she eventually passed away in 1699.
However, that's not the end of Hortense's story. Oh no. No, because although she had passed on, Armand was still very much alive. And weirdly, her husband managed to continue the drama even after her death.
Ah, necromancy, it's come full circle.
I knew those skills would come in handy.
Obsessive Armand actually travelled all the way to miserable England, where he bought Hortense's body from her creditors, then proceeded to take Hortense with him wherever he went, with her body propped up in his carriage like a little doll you take about with you when you're a child.
This is how bad Armand is. He literally made her visit all of the estates that she had despised so much during her life. And he did this for 4 months before he finally allowed her to rest. Because Armand was, and always will be, the literal worst.
I just have to wonder, did he choose only 4 months because he was like, you know what, I am a bit of a dick. I'll put it to bed now. Or is it just because he was carrying about a body for 4 months that it started to naturally decompose?
His entire life, he was a dick.
But you see, Hortense did have the last laugh, because she wrote an autobiography with her sister, and you can still buy it to this day. It's called Memoirs, the Other Voice in Early Modern Europe. And funnily enough, it's written by Hortense, 1646 to 1699, and Marie, 1639 to 1715.
I like how she got her truth out there in the end.
I mean, if there's ever been massive beta cuck energy, it's Armand.
Despite how fun we've made this story sound, I think there was probably a very unhappy woman underneath all of that. She was fleeing her entire life from an abusive husband. But you can read all about that in her book.
I'm still just reveling in the fact he'd knock people's teeth out, for fuck's sake.
I love how, despite how awful he was, he never dulled her shine. She continued living life to the max. As you should. Queer, bisexual nun. You go, girl.
She definitely didn't let others dictate how she should live her life, which is a key lesson, I think, is good to remember. That no matter about all the haters, all the Armands out there, just you do you and live your best life as much as possible.
There was many people had a great deal of love for her. Even though she was off doing whatever she wanted, they still supported her.
I'm amazed that so many people were either like falling for her and like acting as transactional relationships where we're like deeply in love with her.
She was supposed to be a great beauty and potentially the most beautiful out of all of her sisters as well. She definitely wowed people and caught their attention.
Well, she did indeed. I mean, look, she made one man so obsessive he chased her to the ends of the earth.
That's how one queer woman lived her life as fabulously as she could.
What an interesting foray into history this was. I'm so glad Sister Iva had brought us this story.
And now we know what we need to live up to as queer nuns ourselves. However, we hope that you've enjoyed today's story of a fabulous queer nun. But what do we have in store for next time?
You have a month to wait until we do our next episode, which is going to be a return to one of our favourite formats ever. That's right, people. We're going back to Reddit again, and we're looking for some more memes.
Yes, we are going to be exploring the wonderful Reddit, which is Accidental Ally, and discovering people who thought they were being hateful, but actually accidentally supported us. Hooray! So until next time, if you would like to be kept updated on new videos, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And remember, it's also available as a podcast, so you can listen on the go from all of your favourite podcasting sites.
And feel free to keep up with the House of Nunsense on all other social media platforms if you want to see what we're getting up to when we're not just sitting behind a camera. I think we can say we've done the thing.
We've done the thing.
We've done the thing.
We've
We've
done
done the thing.
We've done
We've done the thing.
We've done
We've done the thing.
We've done
We've
the
done
thing.
the thing.